Hello viewers, now there is this question. You solve for theta, when tangent of theta equals 2 times sine of theta within this range. So there is a point we derived one of the identities of trigonometry. We say that tangent of theta is the same as sine of theta divided by cosine of theta. So we can substitute these values here in place of tangent of theta and say, therefore, sine of theta over cosine of theta equals 2 times sine of theta. Now, you can multiply both sides by cosine here, by cosine here. So cosine of theta times sine of theta over cosine of theta equals to 2 sine theta times cosine of theta. This one cancels this. Now you have sine of theta equals 2 sine theta cos theta. You can rearrange it in such a way that we have 0 left on this side. So 2 sine theta cos theta. This one comes this side, it will be minus sine theta, and on this side we are left with 0. Now we can factorize out the common thing. Sine is common, you can see. Sine is common, so we bring sine outside, sine of theta. Inside we will have 2 cos theta minus, since sine is outside, we will have 1 left here equals 0. Now what you need to understand here is that there are 2 options. Option 1, you can divide both sides by sine, by that bracket, so that sine of theta 2 cos theta minus 1 equals 0. So option 1, you can divide both sides by 2 cos theta minus 1 over 2 cos theta minus 1. So this one cancels this. So that one tells you that sine of theta is this divided by this is 0. That's option 1. Option 2, you can say we divide both sides by sine of theta. So sine of theta equals, sine of theta into 2 cos theta minus 1 equals 0. Divide both sides by sine of theta. By sine of theta, so you say over sine of theta over sine of theta. This cancels this. Now you have 2 cos theta minus 1 is this divided by this is 0. So that means that 2 cos theta equals, this one crosses this way to become positive 1. So when you divide both sides by 2, cosine of theta will be a half, or 0.5. So we have those 2 options, either this or this. Okay? Now let us begin with this one. First option. Sine of theta is 0. So to get theta, you take the inverse of 0. inverse of 0 is just 0. That is in the first quadrant. First quadrant, theta is 0. We have second quadrant, it is supposed to be, so here it is just theta. Here it is supposed to be 180 minus theta. I hope you remember that. In the third quadrant, we are supposed to have 180 plus theta. In the fourth quadrant, we are supposed to have 360 minus theta. Very important. Now, since 0 is not a negative value, it is supposed to be found between this and this. Because here all ratios are positive, here only sine is positive, here tangent is positive, here cosine is positive. So positive sign, anything that is not negative is supposed to be found here and here. So in the first quadrant we have 0. In the second quadrant we are supposed to have 180 minus theta. So 180 minus 0 is just 180. That is when sine of theta equals 0. Option 1. Option 2 is when cosine of theta is a half. Hope you remember that. So if this is this, then theta will be the inverse of this. 1 over 2 is the same as 0.5. So inverse of this gives what? Just confirm with the calculator. The inverse of the cosine of 0.5, that is 60 degrees. Now, but I think we have not exhausted the first one. Let us exhaust the first one fully. The first one, when sine is 0, we have not exhausted that one because the range is between negative 180 and positive 180. Let me show you something that is very crucial here. This is y-axis and this is x-axis. When you measure angles anti-clockwise direction, this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270, and you go back to 0 where we have 360 again. But you can continue so that you have 360 plus 90 like that, plus 90 plus 90 plus, but you can also go clockwise direction. That means a negative direction. Anti-clockwise, that is positive direction, this way. 0, 90, 180 to 70 like that. That is anti-clockwise. But if you go clockwise, this way, you're going to have negative angles clockwise. That is negative direction, this way. So here we have 0. When you go this way, you will have negative 90 here. Continue this way, you will have negative 180. So this one can be positive 180 or negative 180. You continue going this way. Negative 180 minus 180, that is negative 270. I think so. Negative 270 minus 90 again is going to be negative 360. Now let us stick to what we have here. We have said that in the first quadrant, now we are still talking about sine of theta equals 0. We are still talking about this. In the first quadrant, we say that we have theta. Here we have 180 minus theta. Here it is 180 plus theta. And here it is 360 minus theta. So in the first quadrant, it is just 0 because we say this one theta is 0. When sine of theta is 0, theta will be 0. In the first quadrant it is just 0. In the second quadrant where sine is positive, it is either going to be 180 minus 0 minus 0, which is just 180, or you also have negative 180 minus theta, which is minus 0, and that is just negative 180. So the options here are 0, 180 and negative 180. Those are the solutions we need. 0, 180 and negative 180. Hope that one is helpful. Now we are done with sine of theta equals 0. Option 2, we said cosine of theta was a half. So to get theta, you take the inverse of this. A half is 0.5. The inverse, we've seen it is 60. Again, let us draw our circle this way. Yes. So, first quadrant, theta. Second quadrant, 180 minus theta. This is 180 plus theta. Third. Fourth quadrant, 360 minus theta. So in the first quadrant, we only have theta, which is 60. In the second quadrant, we have 180 minus 60. 180 minus 60. So 180 minus 60 is 120. 120 is within this range. So yes, 120 is within this range. We'll keep that one. But now the problem is that in the second quadrant, cosine is negative. Here all are positive. Here sine is positive. Here tangent is positive. Here cosine is positive. So this value would only be applicable here if we had a positive sine. But here, a positive cosine, sorry. We are talking about cosine, which is not positive in the second quadrant. So this one, we are not going to keep it. We are looking for the quadrant where cosine is positive. That is the fourth quadrant here. That is the fourth quadrant. Cosine is positive here. And it is 360 minus theta, which is 360 minus 60. That one gives 300. Now the question is this 300 within this range? The answer is no. So we need to look for an equivalent angle that is within this range. So positive 300 means we came this way. This is positive 90, positive 180, positive 270, and we got positive 300 here. Positive 300 is somewhere here. That way. Positive 300. So to get the equivalent angle is we can start from here and measure this angle clockwise up to where we have positive 300. When we come this way, we are going to cover an angle of negative 60. From 0 backwards this way up to this point, we are going to cover negative 360. So this one, the equivalent angle is negative 60. So all solutions that we got x is, previously we got 180, here we have got negative 60, previously we got 0, when sine was 0 we got 0, and then we also got 60 here, and when sine was 0 we also got 180. So these are all the solutions that you need to have.